Hey everyone, Zian over here from Nintendo Life. Now, pretty much, I think the majority of us on this channel we've been playing Nintendo consoles forever. I can still remember the time when I picked up my Gamecube or even my Game Boy Advance. So that led us to thinking about what games we actually picked up when we first got each of those consoles. When we got the Wii, even the Nintendo Switch, which feels like it was not that long ago, but this was over 4 years ago now. And so a while back, we recorded a discussion about the first games that we got with some of the older generation of Nintendo consoles and handheld systems. And so today we're here to talk about some of the other consoles, the newer ones. I guess it's weird to call some of these newer, but you'll see what we mean in a little bit. But we're here to talk about which games we got either around the time or the time that we picked up those consoles. And so of course when I say we, that means I'm not alone. Say hello, John.
Hi. It's weird to think the newer generation still covers people that weren't alive watching this. It was 21 years ago. We have viewers that are much younger than that.
Oh man, that's so long. How do you feel about that, Alex?
Newer is comparative, does not mean new. The SNES is newer than the NES. That does not make it new. It is comparative.
I suppose that's all relevant, isn't it?
That's how I feel about what John said.
Oh, well, good.
Well, I guess when you look at the Game Boy and you look at the Game Boy Advance, I suppose the Game Boy Advance is newer, right? Which is the first system I think I want to talk about because it turns out that launched in March of 2001. That's gross.
The Bronze Age is newer than the Neolithic Age.
I'm learning a lot today.
Yeah, all that just went right over my head. But someone will appreciate that and understand
Someone
it.
in the comments is going to be pleased.
Yeah. So I guess since I'm hosting this time, I'll start out. So for me, I remember going to the Wausau Center Mall, which I love. If anyone knows what that is in the comments,
You Americans have the best names for things at times.
It was the big city that I lived near, and so
the Windy Apple.
It was as close as we could get to that in central Wisconsin. But so we had our mall had, I think there were 3 different places that you could buy video games from. We had a KB Toys, and we had it was either a GameStop or it was a Software Etc. It converted at one point, and I don't remember when. But then we also had an FYE, which was a 4-year electronics. And I remember we went to GameStop, and they were out of Game Boy Advances. And I had the money, and I had enough money for a game, and I knew what I wanted, but they didn't have one. And then I think we went to KB Toys, and they were also out. And I was like, Grandma, what do we do? I need to get a Game Boy Advance at this mall. It has to be here. And I don't remember if we walked around or what. And then, all of a sudden, it was like a light shine down from the sky. And just in the corner of the west wing of the mall was FYE. And we went in there, and they had one Game Boy Advance left. And it was a fuchsia pink, which was not my preferred color choice at the time.
It's a strong color, isn't it?
I mean, it was translucent, and I definitely loved that for it. But that was the only choice I had, so I picked that up. And they still had Golden Sun, which I did not get a system at launch. I got mine a little after, but that was the title that I wanted. So I basically got everything that I wanted out of my Game Boy Advance, just the color choice. But I loved that thing to death. And I remember I beat Golden Sun back in the day. Pretty much the only thing I actually really remember about the game, sadly, is the final boss fight, which makes it a little rough for the day that I actually want to go back to play it. But yeah, I had a great time with that system.
Man, Golden Sun being your first game is so cool. Today that's seen as the hidden gem of Nintendo's Game Boy IPs, and you started with that thing.
Yeah, I was really fortunate to. I think I mentioned this in the last discussion, but I had Final Fantasy II or what's considered Final Fantasy IV on Super Nintendo back in the day, and that kind of got me excited about RPGs, and even Pokemon did too, and Legend of Zelda. And I think the fact that the main character of Golden Sun, Isaac, has blonde hair, and he's got this cool flowing scarf thing, and the background of the cover is green, and it looks very anime. I didn't know much about Golden Sun, but I knew that that was the kind of game that I wanted to play because of the things I'd played in the past. So I knew I had high hopes and kind of knew what I was getting into with that game. So, but it was all because of the games I played beforehand. So. But what about you, John? What did you start out with for Game Boy Advance?
So I got my Game Boy Advance Christmas Day of 2001, and I remember this wasn't just for me. It was kind of like a family present for me and my sisters, and they had already dabbled in games. They had the Game Boy and the Dreamcast, which I kind of took from them, and they were never that into it. Like, one of my sisters was very into Pokemon, but she didn't really play much else. So the Game Boy Advance was mostly just for me, as in I got the most time with it. And the games we got on Christmas Day were Rayman Advance and Super Mario Advance, which is Super Mario Bros. 2. And I was really into Rayman 2 on the Dreamcast before that, and I remember everyone was just unwrapping their presents, and I was staring at the box the entire time. I was like, when can I play this thing? Because I was so into another Rayman. I didn't know it was the first one, because I'd only played the second one, and because it's called Rayman Advance, I didn't have any indication that this was a prequel to what came before. And I'm just staring at that box, and it's the exact same render as Rayman on the Rayman 2 box. They've just taken away his charge shot and replaced it with like a big purple lum, which I find funny. But yeah, I played that thing, and I loved it. It's super challenging. I got to like Band World and didn't get much further than that until I was older, but it was a really cool game to start the Game Boy Advance with, because it's a PlayStation port. So going from like the 8-bit visuals of the original Game Boy to a 32-bit system, like that was a really cool jump.
That's awesome. I was always curious about Rayman Advance, like if it was a new game in that style. Because I mean, as well loved as like the original Rayman is, it doesn't. I mean, I guess now that I think about it, I guess we've gotten more 2D Rayman games, but not many individual ones with that, like the sprite-based art style, and it's so beautiful.
Yeah, it looks beautiful, but it is tough as nails. Like, when you're a kid, I think I played through the first world multiple times. I just couldn't get past anything after that. But it's just so charming and jolly. And then Super Mario Advance is really funny too, because it has those sound effects. Like every single time you die,
oh yeah,
you go, "Oh, mamma mia!" Or when you get a mushroom, it goes, "Just what I needed." It's great stuff.
That's good. Did you struggle with that back in the day too?
Or Mario 2? Yeah. I remember getting to that level where it's really early on. It might even be the second level, where there's that carpet that flies in the air, and you've got to take off the enemy and then fly over a giant gap. I didn't know that you could do a charge jump for the longest time. So I'd keep running off the edge, just trying to reach the carpet. And I think you might be able to do it with Luigi, but no other character I could make it with. But like those masks chasing you around too, god. And I completely missed Mario 2 because I didn't have an NES growing up. So the entire Advance series was my gateway to other Mario games. So Advance 4 was Mario 3, and that was my favorite one then. But I had no idea that these were NES games prior to that.
I had exactly the same problem with the carpet back on the SNES when I played the All-Stars version. I was maybe sort of a comparable age at the time to when you were playing on the GBA. I don't know. Can't remember exactly when it was, but it was oddly vindicating to hear someone else say, "I didn't know I could do a super jump."
I mean, you're never told to. You just crouched down. How would you figure that out?
I mean, the instruction manual makes it relatively clear, but you'd have to read it in order to do that.
And I can't read.
We know, John. It's okay.
I played Super Mario Advance, I think it was 2 years ago on a camping trip. Maybe it was even last year. And I was like, I think I took an RPG with me, and I took that. And I was like, this is going to be my like icebreaker or game, or like just this game I play on the side, like for fun. And it was way harder than I was expecting. And I also don't know if I knew that I could do a super jump. So I guess that makes 3 of us potentially. What about you though for GBA, Alex?
For me, I'm afraid my story is a little bit incomplete because this sounds weird, but I genuinely don't remember how I got my GBA. I would assume because me and my brother got one at the same time, it would have been Christmas or something, but then I also don't remember what games we got first. I can hazard a guess and say I know we had Super Mario Advance pretty damn early. It was a launch game. I imagine we got Super Mario Advance pretty much immediately. But I think we may also have got Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. We may not have got the GBAs super early, like at launch or anything like that. But again, I am only guessing. I really cannot remember what the first game I got was. I'm sorry it's a little bit less interesting as a result, but I do think that one of the games that we definitely got very early was Chuchu Rocket.
Oh, you did? Oh my gosh!
I did, yeah. I remember thinking, this game is bizarre. I like it. And it really sucked us in, both of us. We loved it. I had no idea it was a Dreamcast port either.
It's the bee's knees.
It is. And going back and playing the Dreamcast version, I genuinely prefer the GBA version. I remember being blown away, because in the GBA version, they kind of... I don't want to say emulate, but they kind of pretend that it has the online connectivity that the Dreamcast version has. And it's like, hey, you're going online. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going on the internet on my GB. How does this even work? What? It's connected. I can download games. It's so responsive. It was a lie.
You were had.
Sega got you again.
I can't imagine playing Chuchu Rocket not multiplayer, but I think that's...
Yeah, that's the entire thing,
But I
isn't it?
wonder, I mean, that's good to know that, like, Alex still had such, like, a good time with it still, you know?
Well, there was download play.
What?
Yeah, you could connect another. That's how my brother and I played multiplayer.
Oh!
You can play download play.
Sorry, my brain was, like, only thinking about that in, like, a wireless state, and I was just like, how is it possible?
No, these thin strands of metal that come out of the end of one GBA, and you stick it in the other end, and they chatter away through the power of electricity, and one game can get transferred to the other. Although I remember the sound effects being like heavily compressed or something like that.
I'll honestly say too didn't even know that the GBA really had much download play capability like that either.
Oh, it had loads.
Like I knew that it could do weird things like with GameCube games, but I didn't know like a GBA game could output another, you know, piece of software like that. That's awesome.
Yeah, Bomberman was a classic. He used to play that all the time on the bus.
Chuchu Rocket was one of my first Dreamcast games, and it's still like a party game I play today with friends. Like we just gather together, plug in 4 controllers. It's one of the greats, one of the best party games out there.
I just want to do a brief rendition of the theme tune because it's great. It goes... That's producing a really fun-looking waveform.
You're going to give us so many copyright strikes with your close imitations.
My antics.
I'll hold back the Japanese Chuchu Rocket commercial theme song that I have stuck in my brain then as well, so that way, because we don't really need to get this video buried. But I will send that to you all when I'm done with this later.
Appreciate it.
Of course. So I guess the next system is the GameCube. Alex, do you want to start off with that one?
Sure, because it's quite a straightforward story. I mean, I suppose I could go a little bit further back. My brother and I, we saved up for the GameCube. We saved all our pocket money to get a GameCube. We got to £100. I think the Christmas it came out. I'm not entirely certain about that. And then my dad it was like £120 in the UK, and my dad gave us £20 on the Christmas tree.
Oh,
and
no.
he was just like, "You've done so well, I'm going to pay for the rest of it." So he gave us the extra 20 quid. And then I seem to remember we went to go and buy it shortly afterwards, maybe late December or early January or something. And I think we went there, and maybe there was a bundle that was £120, or maybe there wasn't, and it was just like, you know, hey, you get a game as well, but it's like 130. And if that were the case, my dad would have paid that as well. He was good like that. But the first game we got, I remember it very clearly, was Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2 Rogue Leader.
Oh,
nice.
That game is very hard as a child. Like, it is very hard to know what's going on and not to fly into things. Don't get me wrong, it's a great game. I loved it, and going back to those menus is like a blast from the past for me. And also, like, putting in all the cheats so that you can fly around like a car or something. I can't remember. I remember you could get a Naboo fighter. That was weird. And yeah, it was a great time, but I think my brother and I really, really struggled on the Hoth level when you had to use cables to take down 88. Do I mean 8080s or ATSTs? The bigger ones, the dog-looking fellas.
The comments will let us know. Someone's gonna be typing their comment right now, even before the video goes live.
It'll be my friend Matt, who occasionally watches the videos. Hi, Matt.
That game's still gorgeous today, though. Imagine going from N64 to that. Like, that's a massive jump.
I remember the day after, because my dad would have to set up the consoles for us, which was nonsense. Like, I genuinely think, I don't know whether it actually was an hour, but it felt like an hour, if not more, that it would take for my dad to set things up. I swear he just like went into the room, got some of the cables out, and then just spent some time without having to deal with children for a while, and then would set it up. And yeah, admittedly, he still had to use like the tuner. I think back then, maybe we used composite. I don't know, but either way, I remember the getting absolutely insisting that my friend George, who lived only, you know, sort of a stone's throw away from me, he came round that morning because I had a Gamecube and he would not believe the graphics. I woke up extra early and we had like 15 minutes to play Rogue Leader. I don't know what his reaction was. Probably positive.
Whoa, nice graphics.
I'd like to get my hands on that game.
What about you, John?
In this era, I was a PS2 kid, so I was playing the Shadows of the Colossus and the Final Fantasies.
I'm going to emulate the comments and say, how on earth can you possibly make videos for Nintendo if you've liked any other game?
I know. I am a wrongdoer. I've betrayed everyone.
I'm going to be the other side of the comments though and say, well, he's converted now. He's on the other side of the fence. He understands.
It's not a cult, by the way.
Yeah.
We have had comments like that. It's endlessly entertaining.
Nintendo Life isn't a cult. That should be our little tagline.
Oh, can we make t-shirts? Nintendo Life isn't a cult.
That will convince people.
Yeah.
But I was in a friend group where one person had an Xbox and the other person had a GameCube. So I played a lot of Halo, I played a lot of like Jet Set Radio Future, and the guy with the GameCube was the one I spoke of last time, who let me just watch him play games but never actually touch them. Yeah. And he had two GameCube controllers. I could have played multiplayer with him. And I think the first game I saw him play was Super Smash Bros. Melee. And he just wanted to go through the adventure mode all the time.
Oh.
So I would watch him go through that Zelda dungeon with the Redeads everywhere. I'd watch him do that repeatedly, but I would not get a chance to actually play the game myself for a long time. Eventually, we actually got to play multiplayer together. And because I had never touched the game before, I didn't know what I was doing, and he beat me. And he was like, ha ha ha, you suck at this! So I didn't have a great experience with that. And I didn't actually get a GameCube myself until technically the Wii, with its GameCube backwards compatibility. But the first game I picked up with the Wii, via GameCube, was Wind Waker, because that was another game I watched him play all the time. And I was just off playing Ocarina of Time and Twilight Princess, and I wanted to go back and play everything. So Wind Waker was the one I started with, and I think after that was Melee, but I remember just playing through Wind Waker. It must have been until the early hours of the morning, like until 3 a.m., and it was everything I wanted it to be. It was a jolly ride, and it held up very well.
What about yourself, Mr. Xeon?
Well, I just wanted to quick say I'm glad that all of the the negative things that have come about from with this friend of yours, that there's still so many positives that still come from it. You know, like your experience with Zelda and Smash, even though he laughed at you maniacally after feeding you to his Smash Bros. Melee skill wolves. It still all worked out.
Well, I still like the look of the games. I guess I was the captive in love with the Cowtor, and I wanted to play all these games he showed me. But eventually I stopped seeing him every day because it did get dull. But I don't regret the exposure, I suppose.
That's good.
And his name was Stanley Stockholm Syndrome.
Yeah, that's him. Don't Google him though.
So my GameCube first experiences are kind of like a weird mix between both of yours. So I remember every year my grandparents would have a big garage sale that everybody could bring things over to, and they, everybody in the family, basically, sometimes like a neighbor or two would sell stuff. And I think that year I sold my Game Boy Color with I sold it with Tarzan. And yeah, I was the kid that I had a Game Boy Advance now. I didn't need my Game Boy Color anymore, and now I do regret it. And I've remembered now. I had the green one. My mom had the dandelion yellow one. And I know that's very relevant. But I sold my Game Boy Color, and I had Tony Hawk's Pro Skater for it, which sucks. Terrible game. You just you skate in a half pipe, and that's it. And so I sold both those games with my Game Boy Color to a family, and I cut them a deal on it, which I felt really good about it in the moment, but then afterwards I bawled my eyes out to my grandma and was like, "Grandma, I didn't mean to sell it for so less. Why did I do that? Now I don't have enough money." And my goal was to get a GameCube. with garage sale money, So I was running the garage sale, partially. I was slinging deals, trying to make that money, that Skrilla, And but so then Grandma, at the end of the garage sale, I think I almost had enough money for a GameCube or something in a game, and she probably pitched in some more money along with Grandpa, and then. It was either like that Saturday or Sunday night. Grandpa took me up to Walmart, and I remember I got a purple indigo GameCube, and we got an extra controller so Grandpa could play with me, and we got Super Smash Bros. Melee. And I remember getting home and popping in the disc, and I let we had two controllers, and I wanted to play with my grandpa, unlike your friend, and I played so many matches with him, not necessarily just that night, but we used to play all the time, and he was such a good sport with just always picking up a controller and playing with me, and so my GameCube memory is like one that I just cherish forever. So I mean, lots of people look at Smash Bros. Melee as this like competitive machine, but it's just like the game that I played with my grandpa a lot, and he would let me win, or he just would lose.
That's proper wholesome right there.
Yeah.
yeah. Looking back on Melee, it was just this museum to me. Like I loved the gameplay itself, but the trophies were what really got me invested in exploring more of Nintendo's history. Like seeing these franchises that weren't necessarily in the game, but just wanting to learn more about them. And even the ones that were like Ice Climbers, I'd never played Ice Climber before Melee. I didn't play Metroid before Melee. It just opened up this wormhole for things I wanted to get exposed to, and yeah, it was just such a big part of what made me a Nintendo fan.
I kind of hope that the spirits work in a similar fashion for some people, because now that you mention that, I remember, like, I feel like that's, and maybe you guys can attest to this more too, but I feel like Melee is the first place that a lot of us learned about certain games that we never got, like Devil World, or I think even Dashin the Giant.
I was waiting to talk about Dashin, and you stole it from me.
Please take this. I just it's a good segue.
Well, it was just going to be. That's the first time I heard of Dashin the Giant.
Good. That's awesome.
That was all I had to say. I was hoping the comments would fill in everything else.
Well, now they can yell at me for stealing your thunder from him, or about him rather.
Stealing my thunder from him.
About him. About me. I misplace words all the time.
Ooh, he can't read good.
I can't speak good. I can read. All right. I'll give myself that. So I guess the next up, I think, is the DS. John, how was your first DS encounter?
I was late to the party with DS. So I got a PSP in 2005, and I remember I got the Pirates of the Caribbean double pack at one point, where it came with Dead Man's Chess the game and Dead Man's Chess the UMD movie, man. And that was my thing for a while. And I was very convinced that the PSP was the future. And the PSP had some great games in there.
Dude, I understand. I borrowed a PSP from someone one time, and they had XXX, the movie, and I watched that so many times. And I was like, Nintendo, you're not even... What are we doing here? The Game Boy Advance?
So, I mean, at the time, that felt like a huge jump over what DS was. Like, MP3 players weren't that common. So, like, having a handheld that could have MP3s on there, and you watch movies on there, it felt like a massive media jump. And the game visuals were crazy too. So I was kind of in that mood where I thought like DS was the lame pick. But I enjoyed the PSP. There was lots of great games on there. But then I went back and played Mario Land 1 on my Game Boy. And I just thought like, I miss Nintendo. And at that time, I had a PS2, I had a PSP, I had a Game Boy Advance. I didn't have a Nintendo home console or the next console, or the next handheld console, I should say. And I just wanted to go back to Nintendo for a bit. So I picked up a DS Lite. I was actually a bit late to the DS party. And I got a DS Lite with Sonic Rush, I think was the first one, and I may have also picked up... I can't quite remember the other one, but my main goal for picking up a DS was Phantom Hourglass, but I got it before that came out. So Sonic Rush was definitely the first one I got on there. And I loved it, man. That was the game that kind of said to me that graphics aren't everything. Because I was going from PSP, which was giving us like Grand Theft Auto on the go, like a big 3D open world, and going back to this sort of side-scroller. But still, I think it did so much with the dual screens. Like, they can go like from the top screen to the bottom screen seamlessly. And it really just did change my perspective of what DS was. And I just started having fun with it, rather than comparing it to something that was more powerful.
That's so wholesome. You got to like taste a taste of like the future graphics, but you were still like, nah, this Nintendo stuff is just, it's more fun.
Yeah, I mean,
there's something undeniably more sort of overall charming about a Nintendo system. Not necessarily every Nintendo game, but just in comparison, other systems can sometimes feel a little bit more corporate. And I don't know whether it could just be personal bias, but that's generally, I love my PS4, I like my Xbox One, but it's never, no other system has really captured things in the same way Nintendo has, at least for me. So I can totally see where you're coming from.
That's a really good perspective too. I've never really thought of it that way before.
I think there was a time where I was a bit of a PSP fanboy, because I remember making a petition to port Ocarina of Time to the PSP.
Oh no.
It got like 6 signatures, and I think in there I said like the DS cannot run Ocarina of Time. It's not possible, but the PSP can. So do the right thing, Miyamoto.
I love this.
But yeah, I mean, the DS though, it really did capture a different side of things, and I love it when different consoles just have different objectives. Like PSP was power, DS was giving us different ways to play, and they both just lived simultaneously and gave us different kind of games. And we just don't get that anymore. Like all consoles are kind of the same now.
That's true. And then we have the play date, which is
yeah, that's neat.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a fun little curiosity.
Yeah. Less corporate, though, like you said. I remember trying to get a DS when it first came out, and I think it was a weird scenario where they were like sold out everywhere. Wow, what an uncommon thing. But so we struggled trying to find one. Every time my grandparents would go to the store, or I would, or my mom would, we would always be looking for one. And I think this was probably like 6 months later. I think we finally found one at like a Sam's Club or Shopko or something really random, and I know that means nothing to you guys, so I'll move on. But
you're right.
But so I found one eventually, and I got the standard, this gray DS with Metroid Prime Hunters, the demo, which I loved so much. It was so much fun just to roam around, even in like the multiplayer mode. If I didn't have anybody else to play with, just to jump around and explore was cool to do in a handheld. Because I'm not sure if I'd played. I don't remember if the PSP was even out at this point or not, but this was a big experience for me. And so I think I picked up Super Mario 64 DS, but I feel like that might have been my first title. But the game that I was the most excited to get, I'd been reading about in Nintendo Power for months, and that was Mr. Driller Drill Spirits. and the whole reason I was so excited to get that game was because, to my knowledge, you couldn't play Mr. Driller on any previous Nintendo in any other forms. And it turns out years later I found out I was very wrong. They released it on Game Boy Color, and they released Mr. Driller 2 on Game Boy Advance, which I maybe that came out actually after this even too. Probably not, but those games were out there. And the reason I was so excited about this though was because my grandma and grandpa and I we took a trip to we went to Graceland, where like Elvis has lived or whatever, and on the way there we stopped at a hotel in Illinois, and we stayed the night there, and we went swimming and everything in the pool, and I have lots of great memories from that trip. But in the lobby, which I have no photos of, or it was just like it wasn't even the lobby, it was just a random like hallway. There was a Mr. Driller arcade cabinet and nothing else. It was just that. And I remember playing that for a half an hour maybe. I don't even know. I played it so much that I played that, and like I have such strong memories of that I remember like one year for Christmas, I asked for a Mr. Driller arcade cabinet because I just loved it so much. And so having a Mr. Driller game that I could play like anywhere, or even just play, like so I could relive some of these memories and enjoy it was a big thing. And I actually, if I ever find this, I'll make a post about it or something. But it turns out I actually sent a letter to Nintendo back in the day asking if you could get below like a certain depth in the like within like a certain level, like if you could go below like I don't know, like 5,000 feet or something. I can't remember the measurements they used, but they wrote me back and they were like, we're actually not sure about that. But yeah, so Mr. Driller was my big DS title.
That's awesome.
Yeah. What about you, Alex?
Well, I very much like yourself. I started off with I got a DS. I think it was the first console that I properly got at launch, like properly on the either the first or the second day it was available. I'm fairly certain we even pre-ordered it. It was my brother and I. We shared one, and it was a silver DS Fat, and I don't know whether we pre-ordered games as well, but we bought it. Maybe it was a bundle or something, and it came with Metroid Prime Hunters First Hunt, of course, because I'm pretty sure that was bundled in. And that was a good laugh. We enjoyed it, but it was over very quickly. We also got Super Mario 64 DS, because of course we did. It was the big launch title. And this is when someone in the comments says it wasn't a launch title in Europe, and I'm like, oh, maybe I didn't get a launch. But either way, sort of that was one of the first games we got. But that wasn't the thing that sticks in my mind, because it was playing Super Mario 64, and you play as Yoshi to begin with. Whoa, how weird, and stuff like that. It was a damn good time. But the one that sticks in my mind more than any other is Project Rub, which I think we've discussed privately before. Not like that, but just sort of when we're not recording a video, we've talked about it. It was called Feel the Magic in the States, XYXX or something. I don't know.
Yep.
It was called Project Rub over here. That's what I remember. And it is a weird game that I think I was slightly too young to really have, considering, a woman who is a silhouette has got slightly dirty, because I can't remember why. You have to wash her arm clean, and every time you touch her with the DS stylus, she goes, oh. And then when you get one area completely clean, she goes,
That's just how she talks, Alex.
Yeah, it was...
That's how I bathe, when I wash my arms and go, oh.
I know, John, I remember that time. But the...
I wasn't there.
Yeah, that's like seared into my brain. Because some of the games were, it was all touchscreen based, and that was so mad and revolutionary. And I remember on the way back home in the car playing it and slightly scratching the screen playing the Antline game. And those scratches are still there because that screen was not up to snuff for children, really.
This Project Rub game, by the way, Project Rub's made by Sonic Team.
Yeah. Bizarre. Chuchu Rocket and then Project Rub. It's the natural progression.
It is.
I love that you also managed to get your hands on a copy, because I did at some point as well, but I remember like the anticipation of like trying to get one, because my grandpa was like the kind of person that like looked into the ratings of everything, or if something looked slightly not okay, he was not letting me have it. But grandma, on the other hand, was more relaxed, I guess, in that regard. And I'm assuming she's probably what let it slip through the cracks. But I remember going to the store and always seeing Feel the Magic on the shelf and being like, I need that.
It was the Senran Kagura of its time.
Absolutely, which I also bought. So
of course you did.
But moving on, that wasn't a 3DS launch title, so
yeah.
So I guess that puts us at the Wii. So I picked up a Wii on launch. I was very lucky, I guess, in that regard, as my grandpa stood in line at GameStop in the mall on the day that they were taking reserves. And he managed to be one of the lucky 10 or 15 people or whatever to actually get a reserve. And I think I couldn't go because this was during the week and I had to be at school. And so he went and did it instead for me. But so we got one on launch, all because Grandpa managed to pre-order one, and we picked it up at midnight. And I remember going back with my mom, and a friend went up to pre-order it with me, and we got Wii Sports because that was bundled in, and we played so much bowling. I remember we bowled so much that I used to bowl in a bowling league, and so did my mom, and we actually bowled in a doubles tournament, I think later that month or later that year, and I actually bowled terribly, just awful, because I don't know if maybe I wasn't in league or not, but I was so used to bowling with Wii Sports that my form had actually changed, and I blamed it all on Wii Sports. But I also picked up Twilight Princess, of course, because huge Zelda fan, and it's a Zelda game on a launch system. You got to get it. And I loved it back in the day, and I look back on it differently now. But I also the strange title I picked up was Trauma Center Second Opinion.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and this was my like first entry into this realm of games, and I knew like I loved the narrative driven like anime art style games, and I played Phoenix Wright on DS. Way back before this launched. And I think Trauma Center did a weird thing where, I don't know if you've ever experienced this before, but sometimes like before a system actually comes out, like a few days earlier, like a game will just be available to purchase.
Sure.
And so I think I got Trauma Center like a day or two before the Wii came out. And I was just like, man, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, I look at the disc. Whoa, it's bigger than the Gamecube discs. Oh, look at the manual. The case is white. Just what?
I remember, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I genuinely had the same experience going from the GameCube to the Wii, just seeing a Wii disc, and I was like, well, this thing's huge!
Yeah! And I mean, in the moment, too, like having the game early, I didn't have a system I could put it into or anything, so I was being excited about it, but just for all like the dumbest reasons. And but you're right though, like the big discs is the Wii is one of the big boys now, or Nintendo is. But I pretty much loved all of my launch titles. I actually did beat Second Opinion, and which turns out was a remake of the first Trauma Center game. So it worked out. I didn't miss any important medical story. What about you, Alex?
My story is mildly interesting because I remember the thing is, it kind of goes in three ways. I remember the first game that I played on a Wii full stop. I remember the first game that I played on a Wii properly. And I remember the first game I bought on the Wii. So I'm going to do it in chronological order because that makes sense. I started off and I remember playing very boringly. The first game I played was Wii Sports. Around a friend's house, he got a Wii. We played some Wii Sports. I remember thinking, what the hell? This must be a trick. I genuinely didn't think it was real. But obviously it was. And, it was fine. It was good fun. But then I played, that went by. And then I actually did some voluntary work with my mum. She was working for the local council with sort of like arts and things like that. And they were having a program coming up where they would be using a Wii. And my mum was like, can you set it up? And I was like, yes.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, she brought the Wii home and I unpacked it and everything. I set it up as much as a Wii needs to be set up. And it came with, the best thing to, use when you have children briefly for a few minutes on a system at any one time, The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess.
Oh, no.
And Super Monkey Ball, whatever it was that came out on the Wii. And I remember playing that briefly and just being like, oh, this isn't as good as the others. And I was right. But yeah, the first game I played on the Wii properly was Twilight Princess, because I played it then briefly when I set it up and played maybe an hour or so. But then I actually helped out my mum with, sort of a special thing that they were having with for children with disabilities, and they had a Wii there, and my mum was like, hey, can you man that? You seem to know about these things. And I was like, yeah, sure. And I've got a fairly strong memory of a chap who was very heavily disabled. I'm not even really sure he was communicative, but he worked out surprisingly quickly that pressing the home button caused everyone to turn and look at him. Because he'd interrupted everything, and so he would do nothing but press the home button.
Oh no!
Except when he found out that he could get even more of a reaction by holding down the power button.
No! Oh!
So he would just turn the system off. I think eventually, honestly, the look on his face was a pure unbridled joy, the likes of which I don't think realistically, I don't think I've seen since. Just because there was a way that he could get attention, and in such a simple way, and everyone would turn to look at him, and I'd go, no, you can't do that. All that.
That's priceless.
Yeah, that was it was good fun. Although I'm not gonna lie, after a while it did wear a little thin because I was trying to involve other children as well. But then there was some downtime after that. We'd take the Wii, I'd plug it into a projector in my mum's work, I'd sit in a separate room, in an abandoned school, as it happens, only abandoned because it wasn't yet open. So
okay.
it was brand new build. And I'd sit there and I played through Twilight Princess to completion on a projector over the course of, I think, 3 or 4 weeks, one day a week. And I played Twilight Princess.
That's awesome.
And then I bought a Wii a long time later when I was at university. I didn't own a Wii before then. I bought it secondhand for £40 because the person I was buying it from was upgrading to a Wii U, and I was like, oh, please, I'm a poor student. And I didn't get any money off, but, I was a student. I bought a Wii for 40 quid. Bought the first game I bought for it was a couple of games, actually. I bought Deadly Creatures, if you can believe it.
Oh, wow.
That's a cool one.
It's a damn good game. It's a game that's far better than it has any right to be. Some weird animations with some of the attacks, but, it's good fun. And WarioWare Smooth Moves.
Delightful.
That story was longer than I expected to be. Sorry about that.
No, it's a nice it was a nice story though. Still, and I'm glad you actually got to beat Twilight Princess like on a projector too. That's a pretty cool way to play that game.
Yeah, contrast was not in abundance.
Oh no. Was that a little rough?
It was. I think certain darker areas of the game, I just couldn't really see what was going on. I had to have the blinds drawn all the time.
What about you, John? I know you had a lot of experiences with the Wii.
Yes, I guess this was my big Nintendo turning point, because prior to this I had an N64 with Ocarina of Time, but that was literally just coming up to the Wii. So this was when I was becoming more engaged with games media. So I was around 11, I think, when the Wii came out. And I was buying official Nintendo magazine. I convinced my mum to subscribe to IGN Prime, because they didn't release videos then. You had to be part of a subscription service. I was like on game trailers and all that, so I was very in tune with what was going on. But prior to when the Wii came out, I actually thought it was a rip-off of the iToy, because I was still a bit of a Sony fanboy then. And I was like, motion controls? Sony's been doing that for years. Get a grip, Nintendo.
A rip-off. I love it.
But eventually, when I'm on my Zelda Rift, I overcame that bias, and I just started to get really excited for the Wii. I was watching trailers for Rayman Raving Rabbids and Twilight Princess and Banana Blitz and Wii Sports, and I was super excited. And I didn't get it launch day, I got it Christmas. It came out in November in America. I believe it was December 8th in the UK.
Oh wow.
And the reason I remember that is because I was on game.co.uk, I was on their website, and I was staying up till midnight. I was still pretty young then. And I wasn't pre-ordering. I just wanted to watch the page go from pre-order to out now, because I was just really excited for that. But I got my Wii on Christmas Day with the Wii, which came with Wii Sports, of course Twilight Princess, and also Banana Blitz, because I watched my friend play the first Monkey Ball on Gamecube, never played it myself, but I was excited to have my own Monkey Ball, and of course, it didn't live up. But Twilight Princess was the first game I played. And my family were all they all heard about the Wii, 'cause it was on the news, everyone was talking about it, and they wanted to play Wii Sports, but I was like, please, I need to play Twilight Princess. So I played Twilight Princess. It's very important. I played that until midnight, because on Boxing Day, after Christmas, we go and see family, and I was very aware that I wouldn't have any time with the Wii the next day. So I played Twilight Princess up until midnight, and I got stuck in Ordon Village. I couldn't find out what to do with that cat, because you got to fish twice. So I didn't make much progress, but I just wandered around and just admired everything for a long time. And eventually I played Wii Sports with my family, and they generally don't play games much. My other sister plays Pokemon, my grandmother played Donkey Kong Land on her Game Boy, but no one else played any games. And my father did play Wii Sports Golf with me, so I did get a few rounds of golf with him.
Hey! There's a happy ending after all.
Yeah. But I did love the Wii though. I mean, I think it might be my biggest collection of games, because I've got well over 100 games, and tons of WiiWare games and Virtual Console games as well. And it's what got me playing NES games and Super Nintendo and N64, even some TurboGrafx, I played Bonk's Adventure on that thing. It was this giant portal of games for me, and it really opened everything up. And I played a ton of Gamecube games on there too. It was one of my formative systems.
A lot of people like to give the Wii, I mean, not so much these days, but the Wii always just got so much flack for being this kid-friendly system, and all it has is shovelware, all these garbage games, but looking back now, there's so many great games that you can only play on Wii, and I guess maybe it was just people just felt negative about it just because it wasn't releasing the games that people wanted to play at the time. you know? Like,
I think that's how I felt, to be honest, because I didn't, as I made clear, I didn't get a Wii until university, which was way after the Wii came out. And I think it largely came down to the fact that, yeah, it was like, well, I don't want to play kiddie games, so I got a 360 instead.
yeah, I feel that, you know, like I was a big fan of Dead Space back in the day, and I mean, I still am, but you know, you could play real Dead Space on PS3 and 360, but if you wanted to play Dead Space on Wii, it was a light gun game, and it's still a great game, but it just wasn't the same. And even, I mean, at least that series had representation on Wii. There were so many series that just didn't. So, and not to go off on a tangent about that, but
yeah, it's kind of like the DS and PSP to me. Like, they both offer really different experiences, while 360 and PS3 were very much in the same vein. And in that era, I ended up owning all the consoles at some point or another. But the Wii was just this very distinct one. Like, it had games that you wouldn't find anywhere else, they controlled so differently, and many developers found, like, hope in those limitations. Like, games like Fragile Dreams, you wouldn't find that anywhere else.
Yeah.
And, like, Silent Hill Shattered Memories, it was on PS2, but the Wii with the torch, like, that's the way to play.
Guitar Hero, the controllers were cheaper because you just plug your Wii remote into
you're
them.
right.
Yeah.
That was a good idea though too. Yeah, it was little things like that. You're right. But then we have the 3DS, which is where things got weird in the beginning. Did any of you?
And recent.
I guess that's true. 3DS has always been weird. So for me, my 3DS story is pretty lame. So I'll just start out with it, I guess. I picked one up on launch for I you know, the $250, I think is what it was over here, and the launch lineup just didn't really speak to me. I think there was. I mean, I might spoil
Pilot
some
Wings,
of this.
I think.
Yeah, Pilot Wings.
Yeah. It was like Pilot Wings, Street Fighter, and Nintendogs with the key
I think
titles.
Monkey Ball might have
Plus
even been there,
Cats.
and like plus Cats, right? Dead or Alive. They're like it. The 3DS had like a large launch lineup, but there was nothing that I was like jumping for joy. And I think I always want an RPG first, or like some type of adventure game, something like that. But on 3DS, I got Nintendogs and Cats Golden Retriever Edition. That was my launch title. Pilot Wings. Yes, I probably should have picked that. Oh, we had Steel Diver. That was also a launch title.
God, yes,
but
Steel
no,
Diver.
I went with Nintendogs. yeah, I forgot.
Mine's not that interesting either, so I guess I'll go next and let Alex finish this one off. But I got mine launch day. My birthday was like 3 days before the 3DS came out. So my mum agreed that she'll pay for half of it, and I'll pay the other half. And I picked it up without any Nintendo titles, because I wasn't that interested in Nintendogs or Pilot Wings. And I've gone back since. I've played Pilot Wings Resort, and I think it's a neat game. But I picked it up with Rayman 3D and Street Fighter 4 3D. And Rayman 3D was a port of Rayman 2, which was one of my like childhood platformers. And I think that was the first one I played. But Street Fighter 4 was the really impressive one, because you're taking this 360 game and you're shoving it onto a handheld. And like prior to that, the Wii was Nintendo's, more powerful console at that time. So to go from something that didn't have a Street Fighter game to this handheld, like that felt like a crazy jump. I played it online a ton. So yeah, I didn't pick up any Nintendo games with 3DS. It was just these two third-party ones. But I really did enjoy Street Fighter 4 on
The
there.
Sony fanboyism is really showing.
Yeah.
No Nintendo
Can't shake
games
it.
on a Nintendo system.
On launch day.
Maybe I just hate Nintendo secretly.
Maybe. Zelda's terrible, isn't it?
Yeah, it was all about what was the PS3 one? Heavenly Sword. It's all about Heavenly Sword.
And Ico.
Which isn't. It's not even a
Zelda's
Zelda
just a
clone.
Peter Pan ripoff anyways, so just been there, done that. Am I right, Disney? God.
I mean, Disney didn't write Peter Pan, but
Well,
you know.
yeah, but they still made one.
Well, yes.
They had the audacity to make one. Come on, Disney.
How dare they?
What about you, Alex?
I've told this story a number of times on the channel, so I'm not going to hang around with it too long, although I'll do it when my voice breaks. The 3DS that I bought, I came back from university after the first year, and I was like, you know what I like? I like Nintendo systems. And so I thought to myself, I'm going to buy a 3DS. And so I looked online, and I was waiting for a good deal, and then all of a sudden I saw it. There was a 3DS XL, a red one, and it was available at my local Tesco, the nearest big Tesco. They had one left in stock, so I pre-ordered it, and I couldn't drive at that point, so I had to cycle all the way to my local, which was in Cirencester, which isn't that far as a cycle goes, but I didn't ride bikes ever. So all I had was a mountain bike, which anyone who rides bikes, for commuting or anything like that, will immediately go, ha, don't do that. But that's all I had. So I rode my mountain bike, or I think it was, off the top of my head, it was about sort of 6 miles there, 6 miles back. So not loads by any stretch, but it was a long old way for somebody hideously out of shape and who only had this heavy steel-framed bike. So I cycled all the way there and all the way back. I didn't have the money to get a game, so I just had a console and no game. I brought it back and I just played Face Raiders and stuff like that. And incidentally, I cycled up there with my friend George, who was much fitter than I was, so he was leaving me for Dustner to wait a long time. But I brought it back, and I was looking at the eShop, and I was like, wow, downloading games on a portable from the internet? What a crazy idea, because I never had a DSi. And I just, in the end, I was looking through, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to buy Animal Crossing, and my internet was not good at the time. I genuinely think it took a good, 6 hours to download Animal Crossing.
And you couldn't even play Face Raiders in the meantime.
Yeah, that's right.
No, I was just sat there looking at the screen, every so often turning up the volume so I could hear the blam blam.
Yeah.
And it was only ever 2 blobs at a time, because that was a physical representation of how much you were downloading, and I wasn't downloading a lot. And it took a long time. But then I played Animal Crossing. It was good. I went to sleep. I played it again the next day.
I love that you mentioned Face Raiders there, Xeon. I've completely forgot just the 3DS software, playing with the AR cards, and spawning a Mario or something and taking pictures with it. That was neat. A neat way to spend a couple of minutes.
I feel like you use the word neat to describe something ultimately pointless but briefly amusing.
It's the perfect word.
I like that word a lot. A lot of people, I've used that word before and offended people. And I don't understand.
It's what you use to describe a large potato.
You do?
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
You just think they're neat.
I guess so.
It's a Simpsons reference.
Oh, okay. I was like, I'm gonna have to try this sometime.
I'm glad John got that, because it was slightly roundabout getting to it.
It took me a second.
So that leaves us with the Switch. The Switch is
the Wii U.
Wii U.
Oh wait! Oh no!
How can you forget the Wii U?
The commenters are going to eat you alive, Mr. Xeon.
I'm leaving this in. I'll go first. Why not? Forget it. So I bought a Wii U on launch. I feel like as we've become adults, these stories become less fun, by the way, or at least for me. I don't know. I guess maybe it's because I don't have the strong memories tied back to it anymore.
I went to the shop and I bought a console.
Yeah.
I came home and played a game.
John, stop spoiling my story.
or we barely played a game. So I pre-ordered a Wii U. I got the black special edition 32 gigabyte. That's what it was, right? 32, or is it 64?
Yeah, it is 32.
Yeah.
Did anyone get the 8 gigabyte white one?
Was it 8?
I've never seen one.
Yeah, no, it was small. No, I've never really seen a white Wii U. I'm sure they exist.
I don't know if they do exist.
Yeah, I feel like enough people got hustled into the whole get it this special edition one. You get some perks on the eShop or whatever. I don't remember what it was. I'll show the box in this video for sure, but I remember there being the gold sticker on there that says you get something cool, but besides Nintendo Land. But so I got my Wii U day one. I got Nintendo Land, but I also bought Scribblenauts Unlimited, and because I'd never really I never had a Scribblenauts game on 3D or on DS, but I loved the idea of the series. I played some of it here and there, and I remember picking it up and being really excited about the fact that you could write in the words Link and Zelda and Mario, and those characters would appear in game. But beyond that, I think I probably played the game 2 hours. But Nintendo Land, on the other hand, I want to play that game right now. There were so many fun game modes in it that this would be another one that I would love to pull out if we ever, or the day that we actually get to hang out and just chill together.
It's so fun.
Yeah, there's so many games on there that you just can't replicate in another form, unless if you have I guess the two Switches working together like Mario Party style or almost or something like that. But
it just can't be done seamlessly though, can it? Like it's just hardware level fun.
Yeah, it's insane. But yeah, I remember I probably put in like 50 hours in Nintendo Land. Just if that kind of became the Wii Sports for me. It was like friends would come over, like, oh, we gotta play Mario Chase or the Luigi's Ghost Mansion or whatever it was called. But yep. What about you, Alex? How did you get a Wii U? Oh yeah, of course you did. I'm sorry. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, I based the start of my career on it. Yeah, no, again, I was at university. It's more interesting than I realized because I couldn't afford a Wii U at the time, but I really, really wanted one. This was after launch and everything. I wanted one because one of my housemates had one, and I really liked it. And I think more than anything, what I really wanted to do was I wanted to play Monster Hunter and not get arthritis, basically. And I remember sort of thinking about my finances and everything, and no, I can't really afford it. Even though I had a part-time job as well, I was a tutor, if you can believe. I actually taught children things, which is a terrifying idea nowadays. But if, I was thinking, how can I afford this? And I thought, well, what have I got? What can I sell? So I sold my Wii with WarioWare Smooth Moves, and I think I held on to, I sold a few games to a friend of mine at university. I sold it for more than I paid for it because I'm a swindling bugger. So I sold that, and I sold my iPad as well. And I was really in two minds because I used my iPad quite a lot for university work. But I thought to myself, well, I'll just go back to, sort of pen and paper, the olden days and everything. And, I sold my iPad for £100 on Gumtree or whatever. Bloke just came around and I had to apologize for the fact that it was, it was inscribed on the back and it said, I ate all your bees. That didn't seem to bother him. I just told him to put a case on it. So I sold those and I bought a Wii U with the proceeds. And I got Nintendo Land with it as, as standard. But the first game that I played and played properly was Zombie U. And that was a hell of a good way to get into the Wii U. I remember looking down, had to look down at the gamepad in order to look through your inventory. And if you look up at the screen, it wasn't much help. You could maybe see some zombies coming at you and everything. But it was, just like the DS, it was a new way to play. And it's such a shame that the first two games I had were realistically the only two games that really took advantage of the Wii U gamepad. And but it was a great experience. And then I won an iPad Mini later on for writing a 3-word review for a film I'd seen for free at the cinema. So that was fun.
Did you just say a 3-word review?
Yeah, just 3 words. I saw a film for free. They asked me to write a 3-word review, and everyone else, and I won. And I was like, hey, and they gave me an iPad Mini.
And then you turned into Banjo. Not that I really would have assumed you would do this, but I'm glad you didn't sell your iPad because you were thinking, I'll just use my Wii U gamepad tablet.
I can just take my notes in Art Academy.
Yeah.
Well, I did sort of think it would replace YouTube, and it did.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's a good point. It can work that way. This is relevant to the Wii U. I remember when I got the Wii U, I lived with my grandparents for a year after high school, and I remember taking it home, and their bathroom is that I would shower in or even just get ready in the morning was below my bedroom. And so I actually had the ability to take my gamepad screen down into the basement, and I could watch YouTube from down there because it was just close enough to the console still. And I was just like, hey, I'm cheating, because it felt like you weren't really able to do that most of the time. But
it's a life hack.
Yeah. What about you, John?
Yeah, so mine's, I guess it's less interesting from here on in, but I was at an age where I had a part-time job and no bills or things to spend any money on. So I lived with my parents. I was at college, which for Americans is what you go to before university, and it's free. So I didn't have anything to actually put money on, so I just spent all my money on games. And the Wii U was coming up, and I was super excited. On launch day, I got it with the Zombie U bundle, which I don't think was in America. I think we got Zombie U bundle rather than Nintendo Land. So I got the Zombie U bundle, Nintendo Land, Tekken Tag Tournament 2, Batman Arkham City, and I think there might... and New Super Mario Bros. U. So I got all those games on launch day.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, John. I know you said Batman Arkham City, but it sounded like you said Balan Arkham City, and now I want to see fan art of that.
Someone's on it already. Someone's scribbling down in Photoshop. But yeah, I got all those games at once, and I think the first one I played was Mario U. Because I was actually really excited for it. I know it looked derivative, but it was Mario in HD for the first time. And that was pretty exciting. I remember on the gamepad, you can just swipe along and shift the entire world map seamlessly, like really fast, and just view everything. And I was like, how are they putting this all on one screen at once? In prior games, they just had one world on screen, but now everything's on screen. And you can have Miiverse messages pop up. It was the future. But then I went to Nintendo Land, and I was like, actually, this is better. I played Nintendo Land like Xeon for like 80 hours, I think.
Oh, bloody
And my
balls.
partner and I were that was our game. We played it all the time. When friends came over, they played with us too. It was a delight. And I've always liked the Wii U. And I remember people saying the launch wasn't very good. And I agree that a lot of titles weren't great, but there were some great ones on there. Like Nintendo Land and Zombie U are legitimately really good games. And Tekken Tag Tournament 2, that's the best version of that game.
It's got Peach Panda.
Yeah, how do you beat that?
You don't. So I guess now would probably be a good time to talk about the Switch. But if you look at the time, we've actually been talking for a real long time. So we thought maybe we can just pick this up a later time and just talk about Switch in its whole in one entire episode. What do you guys think? Is that still okay?
Sounds good to
I
me.
like the Switch.
Yeah, I've got a lot to say about the Switch. It's that's what I do every day.
That's fair. We did the Switch was kind of it was a monumental moment for I think a lot of us. So yeah, having one entire just little video to speak about that it'd be nice. It'd be nice. So I guess this kind of leaves the moment where I guess we kind of just have to ask ask the community kind of what games did you start with during this, all of these different systems in these time periods. Even if you got, like Alex or one of us, how we some of us picked up a system a little bit later after launch. It's still really interesting to see kind of what games everyone started with at these on these systems. What was your first go? So yeah, let us know in the comments down below, and of course, if you enjoyed this kind of video too, let us know. We always like hearing from you, especially in discussions like this. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos like this, like especially if you want to see a Switch one, then why don't you go ahead and make that subscribe button the first subscribe button you click today if you haven't already, because obviously, in the last video we made sure that it was the first subscribe button you ever clicked. But for new people, make sure it's the first one you click today. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay safe out there, and we will see you next time.
Can we talk about the first games we played on systems that aren't out yet? Because I think I can... I loved Yoshi's Velvety...
Flipping Island.
Yeah.